Okay, we are live streaming and we need a few more commission members. There's one.
Hi, Joan.
Hello.
Well, look at you. Are you doing all right?
Yes. Yeah, that was my Christmas present.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it just us?
Pardon?
Is it just you and I right now?
No, I'm still waiting for Mark and I guess Mark, and then we'll have all the members here because.
Okay. I'll change my, oh, there's everybody.
Do you want to be addressed as Carol?
I can change that for you, Dave.
I do try to, you know, give feelings to my feminine side.
There you go.
Rename.
She does run the house, you know.
Well, that's obvious. I mean, if you're like the rest of us.
Here's Mark. So I think we have everything. John Contars.
Yes.
I can't see your face. And when we vote, it would be good to see your face so we know who's voting.
What do I
Please.
have to do?
What, to show your face?
Yeah,
Turn the camera on.
the camera's on. I thought.
You should have like a little green light or something indicating that it's actually on.
Huh.
Do you have a camera?
Yeah, it's the one I've used in the past.
Okay.
I'm
Take,
not-
take your mouse to the lower left, John, and then you'll see mute and stop or start video come up.
Oh, okay, start video. There you go.
There you are. Okay.
Everybody.
So you all right with the alternates being blacked out?
Well, as long as they're not voting, yes.
Yeah.
No one wants to see my face.
Are we-
Ready?
Oh,
Are you ready?
I can turn my camera on, but my son just lost a tooth, so I'm simultaneously dealing with some drama.
That's fine.
You can see my ceiling if I turn my camera on.
We're ready. Are we ready to get started?
Yep.
Think so. Call the Planning Commission meeting January 7th for the Franklin Township to order at 7:03. Do you want me to go through attendance? There's 5 planning commissioners, 2 alternates, township engineer, township manager, township secretary, township assistant manager. I'm sorry, 3 alternates.
And Mary is the township secretary. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I got everybody. Oh, and the applicant and Chip as engineer. Any public comment before we get started? No? I'd at least like to welcome Matt to the commission and wish everybody a happy new year. It's been a half a year since we've all gotten together.
Yes.
First order of business, approval of the June 4th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
I went through the minutes and we had a long discussion last time, and I think they pretty accurately reflects where our discussion was. So I recommend approval of the minutes.
All right, do I have a second?
I would second that.
That was Chuck.
Yes.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
can do a little hand if you know how to use it. All opposed? Great, passes unanimously. Next order of business is Organization Planning Commission. We'll take nominations for chairman.
I nominate Dave Hoffman.
Do we take a second on that, Joan, I guess, by
Yeah,
protocol?
yes, we should.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have any other nominations for chairman, please?
No, you need to vote on that first.
How can you take another?
Well, if no one wants you,
All
Can
right.
I just raise my hand? Can I
Yes,
just ask that when whoever said I'll second, can you repeat their name? Because I'm not.
John Gontars. John Gontars seconded.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
okay,
Who's
all,
first?
first was Chuck.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor as myself as chairman? Aye.
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 There's 4, I'll abstain.
okay.
I'll say yes for you.
All right, thanks. Any opposed for the record? No. Okay, nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Mark Harris.
That was Chuck.
That was Chuck.
Do I have a second?
I will second that. If I'm allowed.
Zach, you can't. You're not,
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
All right, John will second it. John Gontars will second it.
okay.
All right, great. All in favor of Mark Harris as vice chair, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And we'll move on to secretary. Nominations for secretary.
I nominate John Gontars.
Do I have a that was Chuck.
That was
Do I-
Chuck.
Matt's raising his hand.
You're muted, Matt.
You're still muted. There you go.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor as John Gartar for secretary, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Great. Don't earn any new jobs. Moving on to next order of business is planning and zoning. And we have the sketch plan. If are you going to present it, Chip? And go through.
I certainly can.
Okay. If
Dave,
you wanna-
before you go on, just so that I understand, Matt is taking Brent's.
Paragraph historical background since it's been 6 months and Matt's new to the planning commission. Start with that would be good.
Okay. So he takes Brent's location,
Yes,
position?
yes.
Okay.
So I just remain an alternate?
Yes,
Do we still have the 3 alternates that we had last year?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because the terms didn't expire yet. Brent's term expired.
Got it.
So Dave, you wanted Chip to give an update?
Yeah, if you could give a background, since we have a new planning commissioner and it's been 6 months for the rest of us. I think we're all pretty familiar, so you don't have to get too detailed, but just to tell us that you did go through zoning hearing and where we are in January 2021.
I'm happy to do that. Also, I don't think Nuri needs any introduction, but he's on here with us. He's the owner of the parcel, 1691 New London Road. I think you can throw a softball from the township office and land it in Nuri's parcel. Does everyone know about where the parcel is?
Yes.
Okay, assuming that means everybody, I think we'll move on from there. Has everyone seen the revised plan that we submitted?
Yes.
And so you have access to look at it. What I will
Yes.
try to do is I will try to briefly describe the improvements, the changes we've made to the parcel, and then I'll go through the various agencies we've talked to after we came before the Planning Commission in June. But before that, I guess I should say that Nuri bought the parcel after learning that he could have on the parcel not only the limited industrial use in the 5,000 square foot shop building, but also occupy the residence. So the two uses, and those two uses were permitted in a November zoning hearing board decision. The single largest condition, the one clear condition, was that an apartment use that had occurred in one of the outbuildings, not the shop, but the personal outbuilding and garage, that will cease to occur as a residential apartment use and will not be started again as a condition of the zoning hearing board decision allowing two uses on that parcel. That being approved, Nuri bought the parcel, and he is in the process now of getting the shop converted from a personal use shop to a commercial auto mechanics shop. That will involve renovating the interior of it. It will not involve increasing its size. The size of the building will remain as it is. We did a preliminary sketch plan and brought it before the Planning Commission in June. I hope that means the dogs liked our plan back in June. Anyway, we got input from the Planning Commission. That input included we needed to go to Chester County Health Department and get our septic system situation defined. There are two septic fields on the site, one for the house and one for the shop. And the one for the house is accepted, working, not an issue. The one for the shop is an issue. We got all the way to DEP. They told us that what we're doing does not rise to the level that they take. I'm not sure the right word that they need to approve. So basically, DEP said we don't need their approval. Chester County Health said we're okay with what you have unless and until it no longer serves. Then Stan Corbett, your sewer consultant, chimed in with his comments, and we're going to discuss those at some length a little bit later. We also, since June, have been to PennDOT. We made the initial submission to PennDOT, and we do not need, in PennDOT's opinion, we do not need a scoping meeting. We are not a minimum use driveway, but we are the lowest. We are considered a low volume driveway. That's our classification. And PennDOT doesn't need a scoping meeting unless the township needs a scoping meeting. In a previous discussion with staff, our sense was that the township will probably not require a scoping meeting. And so we can talk about that more if you all like. But our intention is to pursue a highway occupancy permit based on a low volume driveway without a scoping meeting unless and until that decision gets changed. In addition to that, we've also investigated the parcel, surveyed the parcel, and with Nori's help, we have located the existing impervious cover. We have aerial photographs that go way back, and Nuri went out and did some digging around on the parcel. And the revised plan that you see before you identifies a larger area of impervious cover than the previous plan. We are going to utilize that to try to stay as environmentally neutral as possible using existing impervious cover before creating new. The exception to that is that we are going to, at the township's request, we are going to make the driveway in from New London Road. We're going to make that 20 feet wide until you get to the Y in the road. At the Y in the road, we will use a one-way traffic system so that we will not have to widen the rest of the driveways. We have revised our layout to show that one-way circulation and show a revised parking alignment that is the same number of spaces as we showed on the previous plan, but is better organized for a couple of reasons. Number one, it will allow us some leftover existing impervious to store some vehicles waiting to be worked on. If you look in the lower left-hand portion of our site plan, you'll see an area that's dotted, but it's light in color. That's existing impervious. And so that in real quick terms is sort of how we got to where we are. I should ask for questions now, because then we're going to dive into a couple of issues.
I have a real quick question. Which way is the traffic going?
The traffic is going to circulate in a clockwise direction around the shop. If you were to zoom in, you would see that we have shown wheel paths for a single unit vehicle. That's basically a fire truck or a garbage truck. In discussions with Nuri, he does not expect to take deliveries from tractor trailers on this site. And so a single unit emergency or trash vehicle is the appropriate choice for our design vehicle.
And
Other questions?
second question, another quick question would be the apartment, the old apartment drained to the house, septic?
That's our understanding. It has not been in use since Nuri has owned it. So that's the understanding that the seller gave Nuri.
But you are going to be using that in the future?
We are not going to be using any residential use in the outbuilding.
No,
That
but you'll be using the plumbing, correct?
Nuri, are you going to use the plumbing out there?
If I'm able to, I'd like to have that. I'm basically going to be using the space as a additional workshop, just for my personal projects and things like that. So, out of convenience, I'd like to leave it in. If that arises other issues, then I also don't have a problem with disabling it if necessary. But my understanding is that it shouldn't be a problem. I haven't run into anything that said otherwise yet.
So I thought it was going to be a quick question, but now I need to clarify something. When you submitted to the county, you must have identified which septic field this plumbing was going to, I would think. How could they evaluate if they didn't know what buildings were feeding it?
When Nuri bought the property, it was represented that the use in the outbuilding went to the septic system for the house.
Okay.
We did not challenge it. We also did not do a great deal of investigation into it.
Okay. That was all.
One thing I might add, Nuri, how much use can you imagine you'd put to it? You mean you'd wash your hands out there?
Wash your hand, and yeah, I mean, restroom occasionally. It's not somewhere where I'm going to be spending a whole lot of time, or there's not going to be whole lot of additional traffic in there, and obviously the house will be the preferential throne room. So yeah, I mean, there would be a little bit of just being able to clean myself up before I go back in the house and make everything dirty.
Is there more on that?
That's all I had right now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so what we are working on now is we received comments from Stan Corbett of AECom, and he was concerned about the amount of sewage that would be treated by the shop system that is shown in the on the right-hand side of the plan. Just below the fence, there's a rectangle.
All right, Chip, just a few things. So just since we're all in different locations and for Mary to keep notes, the plan that we're referring to is last revised 12/18/20.
Yes, sir.
And comments that we're referring to is January 4th, 2021.
That's correct. He came back with it looks a little bit like a new letter, but it's basically a revision of his previous letter. And it resulted from two things. Number one, a discussion that Joan and Stan and I had about the issue of the septic system for the shop, and our resubmission. So since that's where we are at this moment, I'm going to go into that issue unless someone else has something they'd like to bring up before I do that. So the concern Stan had was he believes that the number of employees that Nori hopes to have when he's in full swing, when the shop is operating after it's been renovated and is in full operation, Stan's opinion is it could generate over 300 gallons per day. I believe it was 315, and you can see that in his letter, if you all have access to that. And his concern was we had shown 200 gallons per day because that's the size for the septic system when it was installed. I'm sorry, I think it's 1990 it was installed. And his concern was, what about the difference? And our response was that Nori is committed to providing an adequate septic system for the shop. He doesn't know if he'll ever have 7 employees. He doesn't know if he'll ever have 40 customers a day, but we didn't want to we didn't want to show you drastically reduced numbers and have you ask us, why did you show so few employees and so few customers if this is going to be a viable business? So we tried to give you very reasonable numbers. That, however, will not happen immediately. And so Joan and Stan and I discussed a potential compromise. And that compromise was that and you can read this in Stan's letter, is that Nuri will meter the amount of water that the shop uses, and that will tell us how much water the shop is using and tell us whether or not it exceeds 200 gallons per day on a normal basis. If it does, then Nuri will improve the septic system. In addition, Nori will have a septic system, an alternate system designed as part of the approvals process, and then monitor the amount of water that the shop uses, assuming that amount of water goes to the septic system. And if it gets up to numbers that exceed the capacity of this existing system, Nori will improve it or replace it. The last thing that Stan put on his list, and Joan, I think this may be the item that we talked about that may have not been discussed in my conversation with Stan, was that we will enter into an understanding with the township that will be on paper for Nori's commitment to improving the system if improvements or replacement are required. I think that was one of the items that
He
was missed in the discussion.
Well, and he mentioned an O&M agreement. Yes, that's what we will do. We'll document it.
Right.
Is Nuri going to be able to separate the water that goes into the sewage system from the water which is in use, for example, for outside silcox and things of that order? You know, if he's looking at incoming water, that incoming water, not all of it necessarily is going to go down the sewage system.
Well, that makes our proposal somewhat imperfect, but it errs on the side of
I understand that.
being conservative, and so it's an affordable way for us to figure out whether or not we're exceeding 200 gallons per day. And yes, there may be some inaccuracies there, but it seems like a fair way to allow Nuri to comply with the regulations, but not spend a ton of money up front on a theoretical amount of sewage that he may not ever generate.
Oh, I fully agree with you. It's just that it puts Nuri at a disadvantage. That's
If
all.
I'm able to plumb the meter in such a way that it would only read the 4 fixtures that will be inside the shop, then I'll definitely try to do it that way so that we're only metering water that ends up in the tank. That's a really good thought and point, and I hope to, you know, I think it's possible the way that it's set up that I could meter just that.
Does anyone have other questions about this compromise we're putting together here?
I have not a question for you, but about this, how come the county, how come the county isn't taking care of this?
The county looked at the numbers that we had generated. Apparently there's different types of calculators for this sort of thing. They look at our numbers. They said, yeah, we think you're good at 200 gallons per day. And then there was a disagreement with your consultant at that end.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm actually asking Joan, why wouldn't the county, why are we falling into a situation where we have the county is blessing one of their systems and we're blessing the other one?
But the county blessed both of the systems, and we have concerns. Stan has concerns about the one for the shop. So he doesn't want to make Nuri have to put in a whole new system right now to start. So that's why we came up with this monitoring approach, you know, so we make sure everything's operational
Okay.
as he goes
All right.
along.
Okay, that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Any other questions as far as, so there'll be a note on the plan related to this as well as a written agreement?
There, we have put our first attempt at a note on the sketch plan. If that note is acceptable, I would transfer it to the record plan when we do it, when we prepare it. And so, yes, we made an effort to memorialize the compromise as one of the notes currently on the revised plan.
Dave, we record the O&M agreements also.
Right. And Pete, you'll comment on that further in the preliminary/final plan? The note?
Well, I think Stan would cover that. He'll be reviewing that preliminary and final plan since that's specifically related to sewage. So
Okay.
I would defer to Stan's comments on that, obviously, but I'm sure he'll make that happen, and I'll look for it too, and I'm sure Joan will.
But just to be clear, there's been no review of comment 4 on the current sketch plan, and that would be done later.
I'm sorry, no review of comment 4.
I think that's your note 4, sorry. Note 4 on the plan starts with 2 separate septic systems exist on the parcel. I'm thinking that's your attempt at your note for the plan, right?
Well, both Stan and Pete saw the revised plan with a note on it. So I think Stan's letter indicated that he believed the compromise was a reasonable one. Let me find his letter here.
I'm not questioning the compromise. Commenting that the township still has opportunity to review the general note on the plan, and that we haven't necessarily accepted everything that's stated in that note as how it will be on the final plan.
Right. We're here with a revised sketch plan tonight. We're not asking for a preliminary or a final approval. We're simply bringing you our progress. We believe we know much better now what we want to do and how to get there. But we thought it was time, after the amount of time that has gone by, that we come before you again with a revised sketch plan.
Right.
So
I think it's important that we identify where that third building drains, considering we're monitoring. If it doesn't, we need you to identify that it definitely goes to the other septic field, the residential septic field, because we're doing something here to double check the water usage, and we're not including that system in there. So
okay, so the way I have done that in the past, and this is practical, and frankly, it's a little funny. I pour a gallon of milk down the drain because milk shows up very visibly, and then we take the lid off the septic tank and we see if the milk shows up in the septic tank.
Yep,
What comes out.
that's fine.
The other alternative,
and then document it on the drawing. Just indicate that that's where it feeds to.
In other words, you want to see a line on the drawing showing it from the other building into the residential septic system, or something of that type.
Yes, but we also want them to check it, obviously.
Yeah.
so we will probably not dig up all of the lines. We will simply determine where the milk goes and say that's where it drains.
That's fine.
I think that's what he's looking for. Yeah.
I can do that.
Okay. What I think I'll do now is I'm going to go through the December 30 letter that Pete generated, and that way we sort of have a progression that we all can follow. Is that all right with you, Pete?
Sure.
Okay. So starting at the beginning, conformance with zoning ordinance, talks about the variance. We've discussed that variance briefly. I can tell you the two things that changed on the plan related to that variance are, number one, there is a note on the sketch plan that I would transfer to the record plan when we do it. And there is a label on the plan that indicates that this was a suggestion that Pete made that we've taken to heart. And there's a note that indicates that the apartment use in the garage is abolished. If there are no questions about that, item number 2 is landscaping. And landscaping is something we haven't gotten to yet, but we acknowledge that there are requirements and we will meet them. If there are no comments on that, number 3, label the dwelling as existing non-conforming. Somehow that note did not manage its way onto the plan. I included it in my letter of submission, but there will be a note. We will more than likely put it right on the figure that shows where the house is. You'll note that if you look at the plan that the building setback for the current zone runs right through the house. So obviously the house is non-conforming, but we want to state that for clarity. On the second page, Pete was kind enough to say we appear to comply with sketch plan requirements under stormwater management. Because of the existing impervious coverage that's on the site, we believe we can stay under 10,000 square feet of disturbance and under 2,000 square feet of new impervious. That will allow us to use the simplified system that's built into the township's regulation for our stormwater management design. that should save Nuri money in the design phase and in the construction phase of the stormwater management. His use as a mechanic shop is considered a hotspot in the regulations for stormwater management. And so that means that we will have to devise a method of pre-treatment prior to the simplified stormwater management method. Now going into the general items, we normally are required to go preliminary and then final. We have made a request that we be considered preliminary final when we do submit our plan. And we have already made that request, and we would appreciate it if that could remain, if our request could remain live until such a time as we get to that point. To clarify the existing well, we have determined that the existing well serves both the house and the shop. And there used to be a second well, but it has been decommissioned. So we have one well for the house and the shop. However, there are separate lines that run to the house and the shop. So the monitoring that we've decided to do related to the septic system, we should be able to meter the house and the shop, the shop, without including what goes to the house.
Chip, if I could just clarify, I guess there's actually 3 buildings, the workshop, the house, and the garage. Because Yuri said there's water in the workshop, correct? Where the apartment can't be.
Correct.
Yes, there's a sink and a toilet in that shop.
Right, so it serves one well serves 3 structures.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I guess I'd consider the residential outbuildings part of the house, but I understand, and it's clearer to say 3 buildings.
Right.
Item number 3, we do not yet have the lot coverage shown on the zoning table. We increased the amount of information in the zoning table, but we do not have the lot coverage. We are blessed with a large parcel here, so I do not expect lot coverage to be an issue, but we will make it clear the existing and proposed lot coverage on the zoning table when next we submit. Number 4, plan notations added that lists the conditions. There is such a note on the sketch plan, and that harkens back to the first thing we talked about related to the variance.
And Chip, my suggestion there would be on the notation, I know you have the notes separate over at the actual, we'll say workshop that says abolish apartment use. I think it'd be beneficial with the actual note that you say the condition imposed by the zoning hearing board was bing, bing, bing. If it's only that one condition, then so be it. But that way it ties it with that note would be a suggestion when you come in with the preliminary and or final plan.
Okay. I thought I had done that with the note, but I will review it and make sure it's clean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're under general. Number 5, Township's sanitary sewage consultant reviewed the initial sketch plan and has re-reviewed with his letter of January 4th, looking at the revised plan. And we just finished a discussion of the compromise that is proposed to avoid the need right off the bat to build a new septic system. If there are no comments or questions on that, going to number 6. Nuri is aware that there are impact fees that he will have to address. Number 7, we discussed in our previous meeting another issue that Nuri will have to address, and that is the recreational area requirements, since he is creating new commercial space. And Joan was kind enough to give us what may be a final number, Joan, of $1,800 was the fee in lieu. So that's a hard number we can bank on. Thank you.
Yes.
Number 8, plan notes that the applicant is seeking a PennDOT permit. I previously summarized that we've been to PennDOT, and our volume and our situation does not rise to the level of requiring, in their opinion, a scoping meeting. That also means we will not be doing a traffic impact study because of the low volume involved. I have a note to myself, right, that we're a low volume driveway and that no scoping meeting. I would appreciate it if perhaps our notes from tonight's meeting, if it is the township's, if the township's willing to say they don't want a scoping meeting, then we would have the two parties we need, PennDOT and the township, saying a scoping meeting isn't necessary, and that would allow us to proceed without it.
While we're on
Number
the PennDOT issue,
Sir?
will there be signage? My concern is that we're looking at the one driveway from a PennDOT standpoint, but we're not looking at the other driveway. So PennDOT's not looking at that other driveway for this use. However, there's a little bit of confusion there. Or is there going to be signage to make sure people are coming in the right driveway?
There will be signage. In fact, Nuri and I were talking about that today. My submission letter indicated that we do not yet know exactly what our signage will be. And so we don't want to speculate, because, you know, you'll ask us what we want and we don't know yet. So that will be addressed when we come back, but it has not been addressed yet. There will be signage that will make it clear that the business entrance is the entrance to the west. And it'll also be, I think it'll be fairly obvious, because there will be a much larger opening and larger radii. But yes, I hear you that we need to sign it in such a way that folks know which entrance to come in. So I'm down to number 9 on page 2 of Pete's letter. And we will need, once we do the design of our stormwater management and we know how much grading and land disturbance we're going to do, we will have to submit to the Conservation District to provide adequate erosion and sediment control on for the construction phase. Number 10 on page 3, the applicant will need to post financial security. Nuri is aware for the erosion and sediment control. I believe I have covered the issues that are most important to us. Those are obviously the design of our project, PennDOT, the sewage issue, and the erosion and sediment control submission we'll need to make to the Conservation District. Are there other issues that you all would like to hear about?
Any vote from the 5 commissioners?
From anyone in attendance? We're here to try and make.
Chip, I was just trying to keep order of this large mob.
Yes, sir.
Anything from the alternates?
No.
How about Pete?
No, I looked at the plan and my comments in the letter, so I'm good with where we are right now.
Joan, with the sketch plan, it's just our comments, right? We do not make a motion and vote on sketch plans. Sorry, you might be on mute.
Yeah, I didn't want you to hear my dog barking. Chip will take your comments and include them, add them, or whatever he needs to do to the next submission he's going to make. And if he does a final or preliminary final, then you'll make your recommendation to the board.
Right. So, Chip, you're doing this without waivers?
I'm thinking.
There is one waiver that's for the preliminary final. You're asking for that.
The only other thing that you could conceivably call a waiver is the waiver of a scoping meeting with PennDOT. But as far as compliance with the code's concerned, I'm blanking on anything we've asked for. We're blessed with a fair-sized parcel here, so we're hoping to come up with a good design that works with, what it needs to work with, and frankly, the thing that looms largest to me is PennDOT.
I guess, Dave, if I could, oh, sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
Well, it was a question for you. Wouldn't sidewalks fall into this?
Sidewalks where?
Wouldn't there be a requirement for sidewalks? Therefore, there would need to be a waiver of that section.
What Chuck's bringing up, every time we do developments, we get into street lighting and sidewalks, and whether they're still in the saldo and whether we want to have them on this project or not.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, I can.
Or any other things that fall into that category.
So, yes, if that's in the book, then yeah, we would have to address that at the preliminary / final stage. But where I was going to go, not to digress for a minute, Dave, for the benefit of the applicant, with that preliminary final plan, the requirement for separate, do you want to test the temperature of the planning commission so he would know how to come in with what level plan, if it can be combined or not, or if it's a definite no at this point, then it would just be preliminary. I think that would be beneficial to clarify that.
Right, I agree. How does the planning commission feel? I think it's a simple enough project. I would go along with Pete's recommendation myself, that we would approve preliminary and final as one submission.
I would agree, as long as everything's as long as everything's there. But I mean, if we're missing something, then I think they're better off getting a preliminary and then final, if they could add it to the final, is my thought.
I think that's what we said in the last meeting at the minutes, cover that assuming the next submission or whatever submission they have meets all the requirements, we would approve it as a final. I think that's what we said the last time.
Yeah, and I get in other plans where I see that come in, obviously a preliminary plan would lock you in for 5 years if you gave an approval on that, and you're more likely to give, I'll just say in general, approval on preliminaries versus preliminary finals. You like things more, it's got to be all done at that time. So maybe you just have to delay action on a combined plan versus maybe you're more inclined to give action on a preliminary that might not be quite done knowing it's going to final yet. But either way, you get to the same end result. It's a matter of just timing from that standpoint. So again, I just think it helps to clarify it. And maybe it's already been like John said.
So if I may comment.
Yeah, the risk doesn't seem to be as much on our end as potentially the applicants, because there's a time frame from submission to approval. And I mean, I'm not thinking, I don't think any of us are thinking or anticipating any large hurdle. So it's still up to the applicant whether to do both.
Right, so we'll prepare toward a preliminary final, and if an issue comes up, we'll recognize there's an issue, but we might ask for preliminary so as to at least put a small stake in the ground, and then come back with whatever modifications or new issues to be addressed are handled, and then get our final.
I think we're in agreement with that.
Okay.
We've done that in the past, and it has worked. Do we want to say anything more about the scoping meeting from the township's perspective, Joe, is there any reason that we would want to have one when PennDOT is already saying they don't need one?
I mean, I don't feel it's necessary. It's up to Pete. What do you think? I mean, if PennDOT says they're good.
No, I think I've weighed in on email on that already. That to me, it's not required. Again, that's not proposing a traffic light. It's not a high volume entrance. It's a private entrance for a small project off of PennDOT Road with generally no impact to the township. So if the township had some concerns about the project, by all means, I think we should be there if you had a concern. But I'm not aware of anything at that location. And again, it's a small private project not involving the township. So I don't know. We've never, since I've been here, it's the first time I think we've had something with PennDOT. And again, their new format, again, is usually scoping meetings for all these projects, just because that's what they like to do. But I'm certainly of the opinion we don't need it. I don't know what formal action the township has to take other than, Joan in an email, or I can just say we don't recommend we need it. And PennDOT will still go through their process. We just won't be part of it.
Should we just include that in the meeting minutes, saying that we discussed it, and for Chip's sake, the township doesn't see the requirement either. Does that satisfy you, Chip?
Yeah, if I could have anything either in writing or in an email that I can show to PennDOT when I submit, that would seem to me that would sort of give me I will tell PennDOT that you all have said what you've said, but if there was something I could show, that would seem to me to be worth be helpful to us.
So Pete, do you want to put that in an email or something, or?
I think just in an email would be simpler, rather than if I'm PennDOT, rather than trying to read 5, pages of minutes and get to the end run. I'll pen an email. I'll run it by Joan, and then that's no problem.
Thank you.
I think it's important that they recognize that this project is happening while they've already got probably a final set of modifications for that section of road, that they do their work, PennDOT, to make sure that that their new plan includes this information. So Chip, I'm just making you aware of the fact that PennDOT's redoing your main road in front of you. So you want to make sure that you didn't end up with something after they've surveyed, and you know what I mean?
Yep. And I will say that, and I was going to bring this up anyway, it has turned out to be pretty much a non-issue. Joan was kind enough to tell me that there was a project coming. I contacted PennDOT, and they did send me plans that include the area in front of the project. And it looks like the grade of the road after it's modified may be adjusted up to 3 inches up or down, but that is very easy for us to accommodate. The width is not at all significantly different. Again, less than a foot different. So we dodged a bullet on that one, and we're I thank Joan for calling it to my attention, and we did reach out, and Joan, I believe I sent the plans over, didn't I? So that you'd have a copy?
Yes, yes.
Good.
All right. Any other comments? Anything else you need, Chip or Nori?
I think we have our marching orders. My sense, if I were to try to read the Planning Commission, is that what we're proposing doesn't look like it's unacceptable. Looks like it's a reasonable way to approach Nori going into business here on this parcel. And so I'm not taking away a lot of negative comments. The only thing, a new go-do that I have is to pour some milk down the drain.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
So if does the Planning Commission anticipate that they will have a reason to meet anytime soon again before we need to come back? The reason that I ask is if we need your minutes for some reason to provide to someone, if you're not meeting because there isn't anything to meet about, then, we don't have the benefit of that, of those notes. I mean, it is what it is. I was just wondering, are there other folks that may cause you to have a meeting in February, or if we're not ready?
Joan, when will the notes be out, Joan?
Mary will be working on them tomorrow, and they probably will be done by Monday. But I mean, and we can give them to Chip, but they won't be the approved minutes.
They won't be approved,
But we may be meeting in February when we get on to our next topic here, the general code review. So depending what everybody wants to do, we may be meeting in February.
Well, we'll appreciate the notes, whether they're approved or not, and we'll benefit from them. And then when they are approved, it'll be great to see that as well.
You'll definitely have them by June.
Well, thank you.
We meet twice a year.
Whether you need it or not, right? Someone remind me, how did we end the discussion about sidewalks?
I'm just pointing out that you may be required to have sidewalks, and therefore, if you didn't want to put sidewalks in, you would have to request a variance or a waiver.
And it's for projects like this in the past, I will tell you that given you need to look around at the rest of the properties and anticipate whether we see the need for sidewalks.
I'd be the only one on the street.
Right. I must admit, having been to the site several times and using Google Maps a lot, I don't remember seeing a sidewalk anywhere nearby. So if it is a smart thing to do, we will submit a waiver request, alleviating us from the need to build sidewalks if in fact it is determined that they are required. And then we'll maybe be successful getting a waiver or not. Should I bring up streetlights, or is that, or am I pushing my luck here?
I think they would only be for internal roads that are public roads that are being constructed. So,
okay,
I think you're safe.
Great. I'm 2 for 2. I better quit.
Right.
All right, should we move on?
We thank you very much for your review of our information and chatting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next, under planning and zoning, is addressing the general code review, and just touching base with Joan. Tonight is not to start to dive into this, but to get an overview of what we're being asked to do as a planning commission in addressing the comment. Do you want to take it from there, Joan?
Okay, well, general code has done their analysis of our ordinances, and there are some places that there's inconsistencies and multiple definitions maybe for the same item. So they've put this together and letting us know where these where they feel changes should take place. So Jeff Vogels has gone through this book, and the sheet that's in the front of your book, it's this one here. These are Jeff Vogels' thoughts, where he's taken everyone, and it might say do not revise or revise, as suggested, because general code does make suggestions for some of these. So what my thought is that if we go through this, and just after you gentlemen have a chance to look look this over when we start it, is go through them just one at a time. And if, you know, if everybody agrees that, for example, 1-02 says do not revise is what Jeff Vogel says. So if everybody agrees, you know, then we'll just mark it that way and go on to the next one. Because then when this is all done, we have to decide how we want to change our ordinances. Now, some of these ordinances do not apply to zoning. It's the whole ordinance book, which you have. So, you know, Dave and I were talking, some of these you may not have to deal with. You may only have to look at the ones that involve the like chapter 27 and 22 for subdivision and land development and the zoning ordinances. I mean, you're welcome to make comments about any of them if you choose, but the ones you really need to look at are the ones that apply to the planning commission. So again, if, you know, if we want to meet next month and start on these, or, you know, working through some of them and come to an agreement as to what you think the change should be for that item number, you know, we can get through this.
Can I ask, so what's Jeff's and what's the original?
The book is the original.
Book is the original.
The book is what the code company has found as the differences.
And where's Jeff's?
On the paper, you should have a paper in the front of your book.
There's 3 pages in the front of the book, Chuck.
Really?
It's in the front pocket, in the front front
Don't
jacket.
have it? If you don't have it, we'll make sure you get it.
I don't. Is it in the electric?
Where's Mary? Mary, it should be in the electric, but again, we can send it to you. You know,
No, don't worry about it. If it's in the electric, I'll just print it out. It's 3
Okay.
sheets. No big deal.
Okay.
Okay.
And so when you're looking at this, some of these, some of Jeff's notes say SR, which is solicitor's review, and is what Jeff feels the solicitor should do. So Mark has this book also, and he's going to be looking at some of the things to see if he should recommend changes.
Well, which are the ones that we should look at from a planning commission perspective?
Chapters 22 and 27. That's 22 is land development and
Okay.
and subdivision, and 27 is the zoning ordinance.
Streets and sidewalks, is that not?
That's in subdivision and land development.
I am gonna need it because I don't have the general code and the electric in the digital form.
Okay.
If
You have-
you can send me the digital, either one.
Okay, but you do have the hard copy of the book.
I do have the hard copy of the book.
Okay. Okay.
I'll try to get that to you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Well, should we bite off a piece for the next meeting or take everything from 22 to 27? Because I'm not sure how much work's involved.
There is a link to the full code on the website for the township, if it helps.
But does it have the comments, Jeff's comments?
No, Zach means our current code is
Yeah,
on.
I know that. Okay. Well, how do you want to handle it? Do you want to just bite off a bit of it or just start at 22.001 and see how far we get at the next meeting?
Well, that's what I suggest you do. You have a chance to look at this, and then at the next meeting we could start at 22 and just work our way through it. And if, like I said, if everybody agrees to, between Jeff Vogel's and the 5 of you, if everybody agrees to the change that's suggested, then that's the way we mark it. And if it's not, if everyone doesn't agree, then we can discuss, which way it should be.
So the SRs, though, those are for the review of the solicitor, right?
Yes.
So we should not look at those.
Well, you can look at them if you want, but Jeff feels that Mark should weigh in on them.
Okay, so.
That's Jeff's opinion.
Okay. Well, Jeff's been usually pretty right.
I'll tell him you said that.
Even, even with Jeff's opinion, as we always get Jeff's and Pete's opinion, we take their recommendations and then recommend to the board.
Right.
I think we would still review 22 and 27. If we all kind of commit to at least getting through 22 next time, and if we all want to be overachievers and start getting into 27, that would be good too.
No, as far as we can go, sure.
Okay, so we'll put this on the agenda for next month.
Yes.
And if Nori has something, we'll add him. If not, it'll just be the code we can work on. Okay.
Yeah, that way we can approve the minutes for this month for him as well.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Any public comment? Being none, how about if we adjourn at 8:06?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
See you next
Right.
month.
Good night, stay safe.